Greetings, Flosstube. It is Wednesday, August 15th, 2018. It is 5:30 p.m. And I think I have figured out that if I sit more in front of my light, it's not going to be so glaring, but it's going to give me enough light to show you some goodies. I've realized that I had promised you a three-part Flosstube video the last time, and I only got the first two parts done. Part of that was because I wanted to wait till I got a haircut, because I look like a deranged Muppet when I need a haircut. And other part of it was just I sat down to do it, and it was such a hot mess I just couldn't deal with it. So I had my little short day at work today, and I've done what I planned to do, so I just wanted to film this and tuck in for the evening and do some stitching. The third part of my video is going to be some vacation haul and discussion of my new favorite needlework. And I have the ladies to thank at Needlepoint Junction in Hilton Head, South Carolina for this. I have gotten into needlepoint. Probably going as hard into needlepoint as Danielle is into diamond painting. I have to say, thankfully, unlike diamond painting, which I think is probably relatively affordable if you buy from AliExpress and places like that, needlepoint can be cost prohibitive. A lot of the really quality needlepoint canvases are hand painted by the designers, and as you'll see here in a few minutes, thankfully they're as expensive as they are, because if they weren't, who knows what kind of rabbit holes I would have gone down already. I'm sure I would have gone down a few more than I have. So how did I get into needlepoint? Well, my husband and I started vacationing on Hilton Head in 2016, and last year before we went, I thought, I'm going to look in Google and see if I can find any local needlework shops. I doubt there are any. Those are a dime a dozen. Those used to be a dime a dozen, but now they're like, it's really rare to find a cross-stitch shop, but just on the off chance I can find something. And I found Needlepoint Junction, which is actually not that far from where we stay. And last year I went, and it lives up to its name. It's Needlepoint, but they do have a small corner of the store that's dedicated to cross stitch. But it's all like older stuff, like some of the very first Mirabilias, some of the older Jim Shore Mill Hill kits, a lot of older patterns. I got a couple things here related to cross stitch that I'll show you, and you'll see what I mean. And this year I talked to the owner about it, and she said, yeah, we used to have a cross-stitch junction, but sadly it went out of business 12 years ago. So that was sad. And I don't understand why a store like Needlepoint Junction can thrive, but cross-stitch junction wouldn't have, because it's, as you'll see, it's basically the same type thing. I mean, what got me into the discussion with the ladies was last year we discussed needlepoint, and I was telling them about my grandmother, because when I was younger, my grandmother needlepointed, and she actually did a lot of needlepointing before I was born. But the one thing that sticks out in my mind is one thing she made was she needlepointed a piano bench cover for us. And by the time I was old enough to be interested in needlework, she had kind of given up on it because she couldn't see as well, so I didn't have the opportunity for her to teach me like I had with my mother teaching me cross stitch. So I always kind of wanted to know how to needlepoint. It was just I'd never really knew, a place to get supplies or anything. Of course, this was way back in the day before the internet was a thing, so needlepoint was never something I entertained. And the ladies last year were like, well, you said you cross stitch. If you can cross stitch, you can do needlepoint, and do needlepoint, in half the time, because the basic needlepoint stitch is a continental stitch, which is half cross stitch. So they sold me on it, and I looked through, and I decided to get a small pattern last year. And the only reason I didn't finish this until this year was because I misplaced my thread for a while. But I did this, and those of you who have seen my Facebook page or my Instagram page have seen this. I guess needlepoint is kind of like full coverage cross stitch. But the things that I really love about needlepoint are A, it's mindless. There's no counting involved. You've got your threads, you've got your canvas, you just stitch. B, there's no color key. You have a color pattern printed on a canvas, and you pick out your own threads, which I think is the most fun part of it. So this one was a lot of fun. I had the ladies help me decide, but there's two different colors of green: purple, black, red metallic, green metallic, white, and white in it. So there's not that many different colors. I'll show you the threads I used here in a minute. But I just really like needlepoint. All you need is the needlepoint canvas, stretcher bars, and your thread. And they basically, there are different size canvases that kind of correspond to Aida fabric. This one was like the equivalent of an 18 count. You can see those small holes. And they do have the equivalents of 14 count and some bigger canvases. And the thing is like with this one, I used 3 strands of the thread, but if you were doing like a 14 count canvas for needlepoint, you would use all six threads for coverage. So that got me interested in needlepoint. And when we went back this year, it was funny because we were with my goddaughter's family, and I had taken her mom to go get a facial, and we had done all the little girly stuff. And we got back to the room, and I told Bill, I'm just going to run to Needlepoint Junction long enough to pick up some specialty thread. I'm not going to get anything else. I'll be back soon. And then I, of course, proceeded to buy what I'm about to show you. Now, it was interesting to me how this actually came up on, I believe it was Stitch Mania. Someone was asking about these vacation patterns because in the cross stitch section, I bought a couple things. This one I bought this year, the Hilton Head. Somebody actually brought up these patterns on Stitch Mania. Now this one's old enough that this one is one of the handwritten ones, which I love, because when I learned how to cross stitch, the internet wasn't even, I learned in the summer of 93, or summer of 92, excuse me. It was the summer before my senior year in high school. And the internet didn't even really exist back then, because the internet really didn't come into its own until I was in college, and just a skosh after college, because I graduated in 97. So everything cross-stitch related was hand-drawn back then. So I bought this one, and then actually last year I bought the complimentary one, which is also an M.M. Waldick design. That's actually the little, it kind of reminds me of like a Sue Hillis map, and it's also hand-drawn. Now, if you look at Hilton Head, I think it's shaped kind of like a disfigured foot. It's a very small island. It's only 12 miles long and about 3 miles wide. It's only 36 square miles. And that also includes Dafuski Island, which is a little rich enclave, basically. I mean, we did a dolphin river cruise last year on Dafuski Island, and trust me, that's like where the uber rich live. There's several sets of celebrities who live out there, and there's only one way onto and off of the island, so good luck in a hurricane, folks. But anyway, if you look, and you notice that it's shaped like a foot, we stay somewhere down kind of around the heel. Whoops, which way? I gotta remember which way to point. We stay somewhere up in this little part of the heel, right where that alligator is, and it's called Follyfield Beach. So there's still a lot of exploration to do down this side and up on the other side of the island here. That one I bought last year. I haven't done anything with that one either. And then I bought a couple of cross-stitch booklets. This one is an old Bent Creek from 2000, but I thought this would be cute to do for a craft fair or something. I just really liked the autumn-y. I mean, I don't like autumn at all. I hate autumn. It's my least, well, it's my second least favorite season. I love spring and summer, even though my sinuses don't, but I like how the sampler, the alphabet part of it, spells out harvest. And then this one, I've been looking for something, and I thought I found something that I wanted to stitch, but I changed my mind when I saw this. My nephew's going for his Eagle Scout, and so I thought what I would do, this is an old Bent Creek pattern from 2008. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stitch the eagle and then just put his name and the date that he attains his eagle rank on it. And I also really love these houses because you know me and patriotic stuff. So that was the extent of the cross stitch patterns I bought. Now I did buy a bunch of specialty threads, not only just for my needle point, but for just because they have pretty much all the Weeks dye works, all the Gast, bunch of stuff. But like I said, needlepoint is very, very much kind of go with what you like. So they stock a whole bunch of different threads. And I don't know why, but I'm really getting into specialty threads. As you saw, if you watched my last little, I called it a Flosstube interlude because it wasn't really a full Flosstube video because I was basically trying to do it on the fly in my car on my lunch break. But I've got the Johnny Reed Designs 5 thread a month thread of the month club, and I will be getting my first package any day now. Of course, with it coming from the UK, you know, Michelle Easters does the invoices on the first of the month, but of course it'll be here. But you know what? I don't care. It's going to be pretty when it gets here. So, what I was telling you about the needlepoint canvases, I bought 2 this year, and I had to get a little bit bigger stretcher bars because the other one I had was like a 6x6, and these are 8x8s. I would never really want to stitch anything bigger than an 8x8, I don't think, just for ease of holding it in hand, because, you know, I don't have room here for a stand or anything. This one I've started working on. I got this one to make into a Christmas ornament for my husband. I don't know how well you can see that with it being a see-through mesh canvas, but it's a football ornament on a stocking, and I've already started working on it. I'll show you the threads I'm using on that in a minute. This was a $60 canvas, believe it or not. I spent over almost 100 on canvases. My husband was floored. He was like, "What makes that What makes this $60?" And I was like, "Well, because it's hand painted. It's not just like machine stamped on there. I mean, like those little needlepoint kits you get at Hobby Lobby and Michael's, or you used to be able to get them at Michael's. Those are stamped, but these are actually painted by the designers. So I like that. As if we don't have enough football ornaments on our tree, but." I started on this a few weeks ago. I haven't picked it up again, but I probably will here in the next couple days. And then I got this one. My dad went to North Carolina State University, and my nephew wants to go there. And the thing about this would make a nice little pillow or something, but if you see the square that's drawn around it, that's because all this is filled in with white. So it's going to be tedious after a while. This one is going to be one of those that I'll just pick up when I need a break from working on other stuff. But I thought this was cool. And I mean, the sheer scope, these are both 18 count canvases, I should say. The sheer scope of the different kinds of, and I mean, of course, they have a lot of beach themes and all, because, you know, they're there at Hilton Head. But I mean, just they have some of the most amazing Charlie Harper patterns, which they're too big, or else I would love to have one. I don't know if y'all know who Charlie Harper is. Some of you do, I'm sure. He did those kind of Art Deco creatures. I showed you videos and videos ago the Charlie Harper Basset Hound pattern that I bought. And he does all kinds of stylized birds. There's a couple of cardinals that I love. And really, I would say, I mean, I think he was mid-20th century artist, but he did like that Art Deco kind of style. Y'all would know him if you saw him, I'm sure. So then, of course, when I bought my canvases, I needed to get some threads to stitch them with. So I don't know how well it shows up, but if you can see where that pale blue is, like the snow here, I'm going to use this thread. This is Sparkle Rays, and this is Sparkle Rays, and it's a very pale, it's called Light Colonial Blue, and it is polyester and nylon, so it's Actually feels very soft and like it'll be very easy to use. Then I've already started using this one on, what did I use this one on? I used this one. Did I use this one on? Yeah, I used this one on the stocking. This one I got to do the pieces of darker red that are kind of the highlights around the edge of the ornament. And this is Splendor. And Splendor is, this one is silk, 100% silk 12 ply. And this is called Ruby Red. Because NC State red is a very true, bright, like Christmas red. Like if I were doing an NC State cross stitch, I would probably use 666, which is the Christmas red. And then for the rest of the red in there, I got Splendor in Christmas red. This is like the 666. So there's that. And then for the dark green, I got Splendor Silk for the evergreen branches. And this is dark Christmas green, so I thought that was appropriate. And then these were the two that I used on Peace. This one, no, actually, did I? Yeah, I used this one briefly. This dark green is in the outlines of the letters. You can see the dark green accents on the letters. This is Mandarin floss, and it is 100% bamboo, which actually makes it very ecologically sustainable, because bamboo is a very, very quality renewable resource, and it's great. The first time I ever used bamboo in a textile type situation was when I was big into crochet, and I crocheted a bamboo scarf for someone, and it's very, very soft and silky and very environmentally friendly. So that was the color I used around the letters there. And then I also used another bamboo thread in the light pistachio colorway, which is all the green fill in there. And then for the sparkle green, I used Entice, which is a rayon polyester blend. And this is grass green. And that's what I used in the little checkerboard pattern around the edges of the, I'm sorry guys, I never remember which way to, yeah, there you go. I used this in the checkerboard pattern in the border. Come on, focus, focus. And so then for the football, like I said, I used that red already in the ribbon. And I'm just using regular white DMC for all the snowflake accents and the laces on the football. And then for the ornament part here up on the top, I'm using Entice in Flame Orange. And then for the football, since I needed a reddish brown, I got another thing of Splendor in dark terracotta. So that's going to actually be the color of the football. And then the last little thing, the hanger here, I did Entice, and this is Honey Gold. Now this stuff is interesting to use only because it frays like a banshee. I think if I were ever going to stitch anything else with glittery thread, I might use Petite Treasure braid, because I'm sure, depending on the size of the canvas I was stitching, that would probably fray less. But you live and learn. That's, you know, part and parcel of a new craft. So anyway, these are my works in progress here. I'm not even going to start the NC State one for a while. But I'm working on that football ornament. And the thing I like about needlepoint is, like, I will not cross stitch when I'm tired. I just won't, because, you know, that's when I know I'm going to screw something up. And I make the kind of mistakes in cross stitch that are not obvious at first. So I make the kind of mistake that 2 months down the road, when I'm working and I'm about a quarter of the way through or something, then I realize I botched it up and the mistake is too old to go back and frog. So, but the nice thing about needlepoint is it's fill work, so I can do that a little bit easier when I'm tired. The only reason I don't needlepoint as much when I'm tired is just because my eyes just get all blurry and everything. But as far as needing to concentrate on the counting, there's no focus like that in needlepoint, so that makes it much more user-friendly at certain times than cross-stitch can be. So let me just show you these last little bits of thread that I purchased. Like I said, they have pretty much every specialty thread conceivable, including Karen water lilies. This is called Savannah. I just couldn't help but buy that. I mean, I don't really need it for anything, but it is the most beautiful mixture of like tan and teal and dark green. It's beautiful. Very, very beautiful. That's their silk, the Karen water lilies. And then I got Karen wildflowers, which is their cotton thread. And wait for it, firecracker. Of course, you know I'm not going to say the red, white, and blue thread and leave it there. Of course not. Because, you know, USA, all that good stuff. Then I got Gentle Arts sampler threads in Butter Crunch. I just thought that was really beautiful. It goes from a really, really pale, like baby yellow, you know what I mean? Like the kind of yellow people use for babies if they're not into the pink and blue thing, all the way to a real dark, dark gold, like a 746 type gold. Really pretty. And then I bought Gentle Arts Sampler Threads Autumn, which is kind of a nice muted, it goes from like a cream all the way to a real dark brownish red. And then the last specialty threads I bought were Simply Shaker Sampler Threads, and I also bought the Autumn Leaves, which are much more, there's much more color in this than just in the Autumn, but it's like brownish orange and a couple of like mustard yellow colors. So those I will be putting with the rest. And I eventually intend to bobinate all my sampler thread, but right now I've just got my sampler thread on like those rings. Oh, that might be my husband. Hang on a sec. Yes, that was my husband. I just hadn't talked to him all day because they're in the height of battle getting ready for next week's start of football season. So it was good to hear from him. He's got a few more hours of work before he'll be done. But anyway, that was the last little bit of the video I wanted to make. I'm so glad that this time when the phone rang, I actually hit the pause button, because I have stopped myself before and screwed up my video. So at least this time I hit the pause button. So that's about it for this Flosstube video, part 3 of number 27, I believe it is. And I am making some progress on some pieces, so my next video I'll try to post in another week or 2. I'm not going to make any promises, just because as soon as I do that, I'm like Danielle, as soon as I do that, it all goes out the window. But when I do come back, I will have some progress on several different pieces. And until next time, I wish you happy stitching and a happy life. Bye, everyone.